So I'm going to be doing a talk on 0 to SPA in 3 weeks of AngularJS. And first I want to talk about, a little bit about myself. My name is Clint. I'm a software developer at Logical Advantage since April. I've been mainly focused on the front end. And like Dan said, I'm a Appalachian State graduate. I'm also a snowboarder. I'm from the Charlotte area, like Monroe. I own a dog named Rodney, and I worked like Dan was saying. I worked on 3D game development, computer vision, and machine learning in college. So here's a game that I made in college. Hopefully it'll play. So I'm not sure how to control this. So as you can see, I had login. I had it integrated with the MySQL backend, where you can save progress and you could store high scores. So you can see you could upgrade stuff. So if a user would log in and they'd get gems while they're racing, they could upgrade their car, and I would store that to the database. So you could log in and log out on different devices, and you save your progress. I did start with a vehicle physics package, and I did outsource for the art as well, but I put it all together, and now it's on the Android market. It's gotten, I think, over 200,000 downloads. So it was a fun project to work on, and I think it's really helped me out in getting the job that I've got now here at Logical Advantage.
What tool set do you use?
Unity 3D. Yeah, I actually had about 5 or 6 years experience in Unity. The funny thing is, when I integrated the database, it was part of a class, so I put it on the server at school. And then the first couple months, it got really popular, and the administrator was really freaked out. Someone's got root access because there's all this data coming in from Russia and China. He was just freaking out. And I was like, I think I might know what it is. Also did some computer vision and machine learning. This is a project where you could take your phone, point it at a leaf, it would tell you what that leaf is on a mobile device. So this is running in real time, and it's operating just on the shape. So you can actually see it can tell the difference between a Norway maple and the next one, the silver maple. And that was just purely shape-based. It had to be on a white background, but we got to the point where we could do it on any background with, it's called deep learning. So it doesn't look as cool when it works, but it's got way better results. So here's my dog, Rodney. And here's me snowboarding last year.
Was that the dog who was here, or is that a different dog?
He just grew up. Yeah, this is me.
That's you?
Yeah.
Nah.
That's pretty much what it looks like when I snowboard. It's an approximation of me. So I said 0 to SPA just because I pretty much had no experience with web technologies before this. Dan was nice enough to give me about 3 weeks to take a couple of courses on Angular and get up to speed. The reason why I kind of avoided web technologies is I really just hated PHP. I helped someone on their web project, and they were using PHP and they were going in a loop. They were just printing out strings, HTML strings. My first, I just thought that's not right. That can't be the right way to do this. But I guess that's just the way you do it, and I didn't really like that. Also, another reason why I couldn't get into web is because it just seemed like everyone was recommending something else every other week or month or so, like Django or Rails. It's just something new. It's just like, I'm going to learn this, and then it's going to be deprecated a couple months later. So I just held off until something good came along, or I was forced to do web stuff. I say 0. It's not really, because I did add that MySQL database integration to my app with PHP, and I did make a couple of static websites in high school, so I had some basic knowledge. So what's a SPA? A SPA is a single page application And they're apps that load in a single HTML page and dynamically update the page as the user interacts with the app. They use asynchronous JavaScript and HTML5 to create fluid and responsive web apps without constant page loads. And most of that's done, client side with JavaScript. So this is the actual app that I made. I'll go ahead and show that off a little bit. Oh. Guess I'll get out of that. Yeah. So I actually added the authentication last night because I thought they really needed it. So I've got log in with Facebook. So as soon as you log in, you've got everything shows up. It's just a basic product management kind of deal. You can sort by stuff, you can add a product, and then there's some price analysis. Here you can see the cost, price, margin. This is Angular material. I mean, for the front end, or the charts. Oh, I think it's Angular chart, or something like that. No. Really cool. Well, I'll show you that later. Log out. Okay, back to this. So that's what I made. And the frameworks I used were AngularJS, Angular Material, and Firebase. So, Angular, it's an open source web application framework mainly maintained by Google and by a community of individual developers and corporations to address many of the challenges encountered in developing single page applications. So, what does it actually do? How does it actually accomplish that? It has two-way data binding, templates, it's MVC, MVVM, it has dependency injection and directives. So, a really good thing about the Angular's data binding. There's no code that has to traverse or manipulate or listen to the DOM. I say that's a good thing. I've never had to actually write the code to do that, and I'm really glad that I avoided that because that doesn't sound fun. So I've actually got an example of that code. There we go. So you just type in something here, and it automatically is bound. There's no listening. Well, I'm sure there's listening somewhere, but it's abstracted. There's no on-change methods. As soon as you type something in, it's bound from the input to the actual HTML output there. Okay, and you also have templates. So if you wanted to show off these images we've got in this JSON string, all you'd have to do is use the ng repeat, and you can just say image and images. That's that JSON collection there, and it just prints it. It just displays them, and that's great. There's no writing a string to do that. It just works very, it looks like HTML, and it's great. There's MVC, MVVM. So in your model, if you had this object and you would change that object, it would instantly show up in your view. That's really neat. So you have dependency injection. And that allows you to ask for your dependencies rather than having to go look for them or make them yourself. So if you wanted to use the product resource service and this controller, you just inject it in and you'd have that there. That's really good for testability, and you've got all your that there. You also have directives. So say you needed to display a user that had like an avatar and a reputation, all that, you could just, instead of writing HTML code that showed up everywhere, you just write a directive. So you could say user and specify the parameters there and use that everywhere you wanted to. So if you're able to leverage these directives, it makes creating an application very easy because you can just have all these modular things, and if you need to change something that's all over the place on your website, you just change that directive and it shows up everywhere. So I can't really teach you Angular, and it's not really, it's beyond the scope of this presentation, but there's a great a lesson on Pluralsight, and that's the AngularJS line of business applications by Deborah Kurata.
Yeah, I bumped into Deborah in the elevator in Redmond.
Oh, really?
And I was so starstruck. I'm like, hello, what's your name? What's my name? But yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah. She goes through pretty much everything you need to know on setting up an Angular app. She goes over the views, controllers, services, $resource, and $resource mocking, charts, and bootstrap, and there's a lot of other things. The course it's long, it's 5 hours and 36 minutes, and that took me about a week to get through, but I really tried to soak up as much as possible. I typed in everything that she did, and I made sure I understood exactly what everything was doing. There's also some bugs in the lesson. If you follow step by step, you're going to run into some things that weren't fixed, and I addressed those as well. But in fixing those bugs, you learn a lot, and it's a really good experience in solving the stuff that you might come up if you're developing something on your own. But that's just the front end. There's no data persistence. It doesn't actually, as soon as you can enter in and change stuff, but as soon as you reload the page, that data is gone. It's set it back to what's in the resource mocking. So I looked around, and I heard of Firebase about a year ago at a hackathon, and I didn't know enough about web technologies to actually use it, but I thought since I had some time, I would take a look at it. It originally started as a messaging app for games, so you'd use this API if you wanted your game to have messaging, so they message back and forth text messages to other people in the game. But the developers started noticing the application data was being sent over the service, so they turned it into a real-time database service, and it was then acquired by Google. It's a real-time database. It has first-class security features. It automatically scales with your app, so if your app gets huge, it's not going to just die. It's going to scale. It also works offline. If, say, your internet connection is limited, client side, it will actually store the data and wait until connectivity is restored, and then it will update the database. All the data is stored as JSON. So like in that example that I showed, here's the data, the actual data, and you can actually see that on their website. So this is where all the data is, and you can actually edit stuff here and have it change. So if I had, let's see here. It's a real-time database, so if I was to log in here and then add a product over here. So I'm going to just type in whatever. Joe. Price details. So this is actually the app that Deborah Kurata went through. I just made it look more modern. So $6, and we want it to be a 50% markup. And I actually calculate the price for you. Then you save it. It instantaneously gets added. So any user, like you guys could get on this website right now, and as soon as I add something, it's real time. So it just shows up. What's that? I mean, it's abstracted from you, but yeah. So I'll show you how minimal the amount of code I had to do to put this in there. So if I was to, I can actually delete it right here.
So like document DB in Azure, you can do you can write a select statements to get the data.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll show you that in a second. So it's real time and it updates automatically. I think that's really cool. Where's my mouse? There it is. So this is how you get your data. You just give the URL that you're supplied. You create a reference to the database, or to Firebase, and then you use Firebase array, the ref of that URL, and products is the products on that website, or on your database. That's it. That's exactly, I mean, I put this in a service for myself, but it's as simple as that. I could have put this code in there.
You can host Firebase on your own server, or
Firebase has its own serving, but you can do that as well. So it's very, very flexible. And here's saving data. So if I wanted to add a new product to that, I would just use $add, and that returns a promise object. And then you get your reference back if you want to, and then saves it. And you can also use vmproduct.save to edit an existing product. That's it. That's how easy it is to get up and going with this. It's simple to use, but also offers advanced features. So if I wanted to do a query based on like timestamp, or I wanted to select like you said, just by a name or something like that, that's possible. You can limit to like 10 or something like that, and then you have your last 10 messages there. So security, all the data is transferred over a secure SSL connection with a 2048-bit certificate, and it allows granular control over like security rules. So if I wanted my products to be seen by everyone, but not written by everyone, I can put that data in there. Or if I have like a profile, each collection has its own security rules, so I can define how each one behaves. And that's all that security logic is in one central place, so it's easy to update and verify. So you get the read and write rules, and also you get validation. So I'm going to show some of that. So here's the default rules. That's for every collection you'd have in each project. So right now it's just open the world. Anybody can read or write your data. Yeah, it's exactly what you want. So that's not good. So if I decided I want to turn that off, let's go here. So here's my list. Anybody can read it right now. I decide, hey, I don't want that anymore. So I go over here and say false. It goes away. You're locked out of the data. No one can read that data, which you probably don't want to do that, because it's pretty much worthless. You can't. There we go. It doesn't come back as quickly. That's kind of annoying, but you got to reload. That's back. So you'd put all of your rules right here. So I've got this specified as products, but if I had like a profile or any type of other data, you'd just specify it here.
Product is the name of the profile?
Products, it's the entity. So products. This is the root of my data. It says products. So those rules apply directly to this collection. It's actually an array. So if you had a profile and you only wanted the user to edit their own profile, you could have a rule like this. So the whole world could read the profile, but only the user could edit its own data. And here's an example of validation. So it's checking to see if the new data coming in is a string, and it's also checking to see if its length is under 100. So you can go crazy with that validation. Like I was saying earlier, granular control can be achieved for each collection, but since there's only one collection of products in the example, there's really no need to specify. I did, but I didn't. This would have worked just fine. So here's the authentication. This is how you would authenticate a user. And then as soon as you authenticate someone, you get back their user ID and you just work with that token. And it's as simple as that. And it's got Facebook, Twitter, GitHub, Google, all that all the authentication is pretty much just built in. Like it's very simple. I was able to do it, last night after work. I had no authentication before yesterday, and it's very simple to set up Facebook. So here's where you actually use that. You could use Firebase's authentication regardless if you use their database or their hosting. So this could be used on any project regardless. I mean, you can just use it only for authentication, and the data usage would be so low it probably wouldn't cost you anything. And it's very easy to set up. It's very polished user experience. I'll show the. So here's the little login. You can even specify like your session length. So if you had a different website you were hosting on some other server, you just type in the server here. This is literally all I did for Facebook Authenticate. Well, I did have to put in something on the Facebook site. I had to give it some. Well, don't look at my secret. That's not good. I did have to.
Can you make it a little bigger?
I guess. Which one is it? I did have to specify something on the Facebook website. But you can use, your own
So
email.
Firebase is open source, right?
I don't think so. Angular and Angular Material are both open source, but I think this is not. I have a feeling that it's not, but I don't think I saw it on the actual libraries that you use are open source, but I guess that's your question.
You want to host it on your own server.
Right.
There's a licensing issue you have to pay.
I don't know if that's an option. I might have to look into that. Say you have a user that forgot their password. You can have this set up through the API. Here's the users I've got. You've also got anonymous authentication, where the person will just click login anonymously and they'll be issued a user ID. Then you can have your own custom authentication. I mean, like I said, I set this up last night. I didn't actually get the authentication built into the routing, so it's not. You can still get to the sites, but you can't get the data. You can get to the actual pages, like Carl was saying earlier. There's an example of all the login types available at this JS Fiddle, if you'd like to look at that. And the way I made it look nice was I used Angular Material, and it's got directives because Angular gives you the ability to make custom directives. Angular Material built a bunch of directives with that. It has services like a dialog and a bottom sheet and a bunch of neat, cool stuff that'll pop up and allow user interactability. It has layout CS, kind of like Bootstrap, has child alignments, and it also allows you to theme things. The documentation is great. Every single component that they have has a really good example, and it gives you all the code that they use to create it. And you can actually see Angular Material in use. So they actually. This is the Angular Materials autocomplete box in the wild. So you can see here, MD autocomplete. They're actually using Angular Materials directives to make the website. And like right here, this menu is also Angular Material. So Google's definitely behind this product, and they're making it's just reaching 1.0 right now. And we used it in a project, so you can see it doesn't have to look exactly like the documentation. You can make it work any way you'd want it to. So it's very flexible. It's got a bunch of cool directives built into it. So do we have any questions?
Did you import the development version as your library or the minified?
So when I'm developing it, I usually don't use the minified. So if there's an error, I can trace and see what's happened. I ran into that problem where I was using the minified and I had no idea what the problem was. But as soon as I used the non-minified version, I could actually see what was going on. So that was very helpful. Yes.
How did you set up on the grid side where you display the product to sync with the database?
So that's using the Firebase's, I think it's called Angular Fire. I didn't even show off how it was responsive. So let me, it's on the web. So I mean that code that I show you, the getting the data, you just assign that list to the reference, and it works automatically.
Oh, okay.
So there's no code to do that. It's just.
So how expensive is that data?
So what I did was free because I have no users. So I haven't really. I was thinking about possibly simulating a high, a number of users, maybe setting up some type of program that would kind of go on and ping it a lot to test to see, how many users it would take to reach this amount of storage and transfer. So.
Looks like Firebase, they have a monthly model.
Yep.
They have a free version, and then like the $5 version is for a gigabyte of storage.
Right.
And for 10 gigs of transfer. It goes all the way up to $1,500 a month for a massive 300 gig database.
Yeah. I have no idea, I guess we have other projects we could look at and transfer. We could kind of. I took her site, what came out of that, and then I integrated it with Firebase. I can actually show you what I changed. It wasn't that. It took a while to figure out.
Yeah.
So
She mocked them up, didn't she?
she is mocking, but let's see if I can product service here or product resource. So there we go. So this is what Deborah Carrata used. Just function product resource $resource, and then I overrid that with Firebase. So when you're using query, it just returns the Firebase reference. And then get, I could just define a product. It would get that, return that product, and then add, and then I just and that's all I changed to make it work with Firebase. Just change this in the service, and bang, it just worked. So if I wanted to go back to the resource mocking, all I would have to do is uncomment out this and then recomment this again. So this is what she shows you how to do in the Pluralsight course. This works with the mocking. So she shows you how to set up resource mocking. I'm not using this anymore because I'm using the Firebase. But, oh wait, resource. But yeah, so I just bring in Firebase array, Firebase object, just inject those in, and then I have the URL to my Firebase projects. I create a reference, and then I say, hey, when they query, just return that array that you got. And then it automatically syncs. It's just real time. Yeah, magic. So.
Must be creating
Yeah.
So you came across a lot of bugs too in Material, right?
So the biggest bug that came across in Angular Material is there's validation. So if you were to, type an input in wrong, so I'll show you why this is such a big deal in our project. Where is it? So we had this screen. We actually had two of these screens. The whole screen is just a bunch of input boxes. So when I hit save, I was missing. This is not the actual. This is from a long time ago. This is just a, yeah, this is a prototype. So we have all these little red messages that pop up when you haven't, validated properly. And in the old version of Angular Material, the space for this it changed what was allocating the space for the message. And I put an ngIf message or ngIf statement in either somewhere where it shouldn't, or somewhere where it was fine for the old version. But when the version changed, the ngIf was keeping the validation message from allocating space for itself. So when that happened, this whole screen was toast. But all it took was changing where the ngIf message was, and that fixed it. And that's pretty much the only error we had with Angular Material. Yeah, I like it. It's like Bootstrap 2.0 kind of, and it looks good. You get a bunch of cool stuff. Let's see if I can find a dialog somewhere. How do I do this? All right, here we go. There we go. Just want to get really cool dialogues going on. Other stuff. This is this is requested by the client. So there's a Bob the Builder button. There's a lot of. This is something I made up. I don't know if it's ever going to get used, but.
So that filter by, you had to build that, right?
I had to make it be 3 columns. I had to do some fancy stuff to make it be 3 columns. Other than that, yeah.
So 3 columns, you're talking 3
Yeah.
columns?
3 columns, like 1, 2, 3 right here.
For the search results.
Yeah.
So that's your type error.
Right. I think that's all I had to do with that. So then you hit exceed. What's that? No, that was like half a day, maybe. All right. Yeah, I don't know why. At least just use authentication. That's just like it doesn't take any time at all. There's no. I remember other projects we've had that OAuth was just awful.
It's not my fault.
Yeah.
One of the things that surprised me when Clint was showing me Material is it has all these variables that you configure for like colors of the site, and you can really get away with assigning a lot of variables and not doing a lot in CSS.
Yeah. So I just changed a couple of the. I guess I could show that.
You can make a developer who's not good at CSS make something look pretty decent.
Even Joe.
Even
No.
Joe. Well, not Jay.
I'm just
I
kidding.
just outsource it now.
Yeah, I'm the outsource. So where did I do this at? So you can define the palette. There we go. So this is the blue one. Here's the red one. And that's, yep. That's how you do that.
You basically just change it and refresh it and look at it.
Right. Ooh. So, if you guys want to log in with Facebook and mess up my data, you could totally do that. Anybody want to add anything to the database? Anybody?
So you're hosting this on Firebase as
Yep.
well.
Yeah. Also, I noticed that Angular Material is actually hosted with Firebase too. If you go here, I don't know if you can see that Firebase app. So Google's using their own hosting thing.
How do you deploy to Firebase? Is it through like Git or
Um,
your code up there?
So,
PM package.
so if I wanted to change something in the website, all I would do, I would change it in WebStorm, and I would just say Firebase deploy. I don't think I changed anything. And then I can't zoom in any. Sorry, I can't. Oh, I'll cancel it.
You're at node prompt?
Yeah. Or this is just terminals. I don't even know. Then it deployed. Oh, it already. Okay, yeah. I deployed it twice. So, and then you just reload, and then changes are there. I don't know how to make this any bigger. Yep.
You shift command 8, that's max.
To make it bigger.
Yeah, if you go to accessibility, you can actually turn it on.
Huh. Right. But yeah, it was pretty much painless. The biggest problem with the authentication was making my website react when it was authenticated. The authentication was, really smooth. It was the way I set up my website that made it hard to work with it. So, and I think that's what Carl was talking about. So I logged out, but it wasn't on the right screen. So I didn't put the authentication in the routing. So if you authenticate and you're in a certain screen, you're still there. So. So.
Couldn't you just do an G shell hide or something?
Mhm.
It's not a user object?
Right.
Just
Yeah.
Just navigate your record.
Right. I just didn't get around to that last night.
So for like an enterprise application, still go with Firebase or Web API?
I would.
It uses
That's
web
good.
API.
Right.
That's the means of transport. So Firebase is just a database with sockets enabled. It's like Sales.js or some of the others that have been out for a very long time.
Does Firebase have anything to handle a disconnected model?
So if you're disconnected and then you add something to the database, it will update locally and then we'll wait until you get connectivity and then it will update the database.
So it's got the whole synchronization.
Right.
built into it.
Right. So someone added a camera and I can look at the camera's got, it's not the best percent margin there. So. So.
Did you find it pretty easy working with different views and partials for that?
For these tabs I did. So these are it was an abstract edit screen. So all three of these screens use the same controller. Is that what you're?
Yeah, because I know if it's a single page,
Right.
you've got to mimic multi-page application
Right.
with different views.
Right. I used a UI router and for the Angular. That's actually here. So the product edit. So I declared that it's abstract, and then use this controller. And because it's abstract, I can say product edit.info, and that uses the controller, this controller. So I don't have to have an individual controller and worry about passing it back and forth between controllers. It's just all the data shares the same model. So.
How does this information actually reflect on SEO? There's
a whole bunch of documentation on that. I haven't actually gotten into that, but it's definitely doable. So.
Use Span.js to spit out a static version. It's really one of the things to do.
Yeah, did I see an article like weeks ago that said AngularJS improving your SEO?
Yeah, you have to use something like Span.js. Spit out a static version of it so that SEO will work properly. Because by nature, we're creating a dynamic model, right? Client side. So there's no way that the crawlers can look in and get the visibility that it needs. So Span.js is awesome for that because you can automate it. Anything that changes your data, you can have almost like Socket.io, have an event-driven model so that it keeps your static data up to date if you want to, or time basis, quarterly, annually, weekly, hourly, whatever you want, so that as it's crawling, you have that static version. No one sees it, no one knows it's there, but they do. Everyone uses your site.
How does Angular material work on handhelds?
Oh, I forgot to show this off. That website is pretty much, it's responsive, so if I was to grab it. So you've got a side menu. So it's a little bit choppy. The animation is a little bit choppy, but you can just cut that off for the, if you detected it's on mobile. I feel like as phones get faster, it'll, work better. Or you could just use Ionic if you really, wanted it to be a lot more. You're expecting a lot of people to be using on mobile devices. But this, you're not going to get cut off from any interactivity if you're on a mobile device. So.
Is there a benefit to Angular material versus Bootstrap?
It's got some more advanced features. It looks a little bit cooler, but it's pretty close to the same thing. So.
Do you feel like you're fighting the framework at all when you're doing a applied roller, or was it? No.
It really enabled me. So like all setting up the screens the way they looked, and your access. Like I just looked at their documentation, said, hey, child alignment, left, right, stuff like center. And it's different rows and columns, really just. And the great thing about Angular Material is you can make that all responsive. So if we wanted to make Applied Roller be responsive, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. So yeah.
Did you have to specify in the responsibility of Bootstrap if we have to put
Yep.
call like that?
So yeah, it's pretty much basically that. So it's very similar to that. You're not going to have anything in Bootstrap that's not in Angular Material, from what I saw. So, yeah, it was really straightforward. I didn't, on the layout-ish parts, I didn't feel like I was limited at all, or really any part at all. So, yeah. And all three of these products are all maintained by Google. So.
Angular Material, Firebase was the third product.
Angular. Yeah. So Angular Material is actually, a subdomain of Angular that's hosted on Firebase. So.
Oh yeah, show us how you did the toast. I like the toast.
The toast. Yeah. So if you wanted to use a toast, you go to toast, and then show a toast, show custom. And you can make it. Yeah, I think actually this website still has some Bootstrap in it. So if you look here, it's a Bootstrap button, some Bootstrap stuff. But I think, yeah, I use Toaster still on this.
Yeah, Deborah Carrada's didn't use Material, right?
No, she didn't use that. That was completely. I just came by and replaced everything with Angular material.
Just slide into the Angular material.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah, it's pretty much just ripped it off the documentation. But you know.
Oh, look, it looks good on it now.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. But yeah, it's you don't have to make a website look like this. You can make it, really look any way you want it to. So.
What do you need? Like a browser? Is it just Chrome and Firefox with supported on?
It's Internet Explorer too. Yeah. And I'm sure you can build it with Electron. I haven't done that, but so. Yeah, I don't really, the pricing, I guess, that's the biggest thing about it.
Firebase.
Yeah.
Yes. I guess when you host the website, it costs the same as storage for the database.
Right. Yeah, so you get hosting is built in. You get a lot more transfer from the hosting and you do the database.
I think like the only difference between the free version and the first tier was that first tier you get a custom domain.
Right. It's not for $5 a month. That's
Is it $5 prepaid for the year or $5 month to month?
I bet you they make you prepaid.
Yeah.
Those scam
I don't know.
Prepaid.
Yeah. Oh, just get a promo code. You're done. Yeah, call them up. Yeah, I mean, I don't see why you couldn't, if you're going to have less than 100 users, just use a free authentication. Like, that's... Custom domain, so this right here is lapm.firebaseapp.com. So that's what their free domain. But if I use the custom domain, I can name that whatever I want it to. I think you can specify custom.
Make a callback like Azure AD.
Right. You do a custom.
Web tokens.
Yeah. What's now? You got analytics. You can see I was working on it last night. You got your hosting.
Firebase looks pretty easy to get something up there fast.
Yeah. Yeah, if I was going to do anything with authentication, I'd use it. And, database too. And hosting, so.
If I have to do an Angular page app, all I need is my data to be in a JSON format, then it doesn't matter if I use Firebase or I have a web service API.
You could use really any type of database service, so it doesn't have to be in JSON. I mean,
The data doesn't have to be
you might package it as JSON, like.
It'll come down to the browser's JSON.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Depending on how you use it.
Yeah, we've used Mongo
Yeah.
on some projects, and we're using SQL on some projects. We just have to
Right.
serialize it through JSON.
Yeah. That's what I was trying to say.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Clint.
Thank you.
So next up, we're doing it